Hi guys, James here at Miss Soul Car Finance. Just to give a bit of a summary on the Supreme Court case there for the last 3 days or so. This was the FCA had done their presentation and getting their points across, whatever it be in their submissions. The ironic thing, at the end of it was we seek as much certainty as possible and as soon as possible. Now, isn't that ironic coming out the lips of the FCA? I know where we've been since about maybe 2015, 2017. 2017 they started looking at DCA. Now bear in mind we're nearly 7 years on now or whatever, and we still don't have that paid out, and yet they've got the audacity to say to the courts, could you do this as quick as possible and tell us your outcome so as we can move forward? I don't think it'll matter really at what pace they give the outcome. The FCA really need to address this. I think they've had it with themselves long enough. 2017 they started looking at it. In 2019 they realised it was going to be harmful and that get flagged up, and then in 2021 they stopped it and said right, no more DCAs, etc. So in all that time of doing the DCAs, think of it as well, we're now dealing with a hidden commission case. They didn't identify all the hidden commissions and all the issues. Now, as I've said, I own dealerships, and although I would argue that, your Robert Weir and everybody else and plenty of other people tranches on maybe some of the legal stuff, I think what we'll say is comfortably there'll be few people will touch me on the motor trade, the hands-on in the trenches in the motor trade. 35 years, ran my own dealerships, as you've seen, been on the big corporate days with First Rand Bank, Motor Nova, etc. So I would say genuinely, probably nobody will probably touch us on that stuff. I've been right through, all the trenches and stuff. So that's my background. We then went on to the National Franchise Dealer Association, and this was probably just another cracker. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be kind of neutral, but you know the angle we're coming from and maybe the frustration that's there. And I don't mean to take things out of context, and I also don't mean to, speak bad of anybody or whatever, but you've got to be realistic. We're all living in the real world. And this chap says, and you don't go to a car dealer expecting financial advice, you go to buy a car. Having owned dealerships, having worked in the dealerships, having dealt with the customers who are not financially sophisticated, and I'm not talking about people who maybe having a great education or whatever. I'm talking about people that work in banks, people that work in professionals, whatever. The PCP and all the car finance is one of the most sophisticated. Now bear in mind, we've dealt with litigation funding, all types of funding, business funding, etc. The car finance is a very complex thing, and where the NFDA we're talking about, they focus on a monthly figure and all that sort of stuff. It's so misleading. Can you imagine? All you'd need to do is change the deposit amount and also the balloon payment at the end, and your monthly figure completely changes. If you want to increase that balloon figure at the end, you'll be able to reduce the monthly figure, increase the deposit, again, reduce the figure. So all these things we're playing about with. Another trick that everybody used was maybe not a 36-month contract, maybe I put in 3 payments up front, followed by maybe 36, so make it 39. So the customers all the way along, I can't overemphasize, I'm going to have to do a lot of work and a lot of maybe videos and background on this, because as we say, commissions came in multiple different areas, from marketing to loans to bonuses, whatever. So there's so much work, and for the representative of the NFDA to say, no, you don't go to get financial advice. Critical piece of information is to get the financial advice, because it helps the sale of the car, plus it lets the customer get the best experience and the most financial beneficial outcome for them. This was I think it was just maybe the final day. I think it was Lord Briggs. we were looking, Robert Weir was kind of going through all the stuff about, the HP and what had been going on. And they said that, it had gone on for a number of years, maybe 75 years, whatever. And as Robert has said, the fact that it had gone on doesn't make it right, and it's a horrible thing that if you think, like domestic abuse and everything else has gone on for years, it's completely wrong. It's not acceptable, and that should be dealt with. Just the same as this is something, a practice that has gone on. It's been kind of brushed under the carpet, and even the fact that in 2017, the FCA were looking into DCAs and everything else, this should all have been flagged up. If you want to drop me in a dealership, any dealership, I'll tell you exactly where they're making their money, how they're making their money, what their finances are, what their comms are, and all the structure. I'll get to the bottom of that in a short space of time. I don't need 2 years to tell you this is going to be harmful to the public. So, and also the 30 billion or 15 billion, 30 billion that they're worried about, coming back out the financial institutions, they're forgetting that 30 billion was put in there from these financially unsophisticated customers. That's why they've got the money. The financially unsophisticated customers, they took the money off of, and now it's only right that the customers get the money back. Nobody's getting rich out of it. Nobody's, making claims that they're not entitled to, etc. So I think, that was kind of highlighted that, that's been going on for a long number of years, and it's been accepted. The bottom line is, that is now important time as ever to stop this sort of pernicious practice. So obviously that harmful practice was going on, and they've identified that, and I think that this is the time to stop. So pretty much simple as that. Robert Weir has well said that. I believe somebody's saying should we be getting t-shirts or hats or whatever it be, but maybe that's a wee bit over the top. But I think we've got to kind of tip our hat to him. That was an absolute masterclass, and I've been in court a lot of times. I've seen a lot of solicitors, QCs and whatever, and I just don't think we've seen that type of performance. All the arguments that we've had over the years that you're in the back of our brain ready to bring forward, he had them all prepped, and he did a phenomenal job. So in general, it was a good 3 days. I don't think there was too much, for our side, I don't think there was too much that we should be really concerned about. The DCA is pretty much a done deal. I think we can all agree on that. That's a done deal. It just needs to be organised. The hidden commission, I'd say that's pretty much in the bag, but in this world, in this environment, you never really know. So it could be down to some sort of controls and changing maybe some of the FCA book along with the law as well. So it was a fantastic watch. We took so much out of it. We really had to watch it to actually understand the kind of DNA and the feeling of the court and the public. So that's it, all done, and we now just have to wait on the outcome, and we expect that sometime in July. But thanks very much again for watching our videos. That's a kind of brief summary. We'll do lots more on it just because I think it's critical that we all get a wee bit background into it all. Okay, thanks again guys, bye.